Hi, my name is David,
Hi, my name is Justin.
and we're a couple of friends who wanted to come and talk to you about Disney and how we came to love it and show our adventure and our journey together as we learn about the Disney parks.
Yeah, we're hoping from here, I guess, to go into pretty much Disney everything, but for right now, we're just going to do some introductions.
You want to break that open?
My name is Justin. I am a mathematician, big numbers guy. I don't talk about it too much, so don't worry. We're not going to bore you to death with all the numbers on this podcast or anything like that.
He's pretty good
Um,
about that.
yeah, but obviously, Disney, big interest of mine. Married. Presently, no kids, two dogs, who I'm a big fan of, and live in the great state of Maryland along the Eastern Shore, actually, sort of barely the Eastern Shore, kind of close to Pennsylvania and Delaware.
And my name is David. Like I said, I've probably introduced myself 3 times, and the ones you haven't heard because I cut those out. I am a pastor. I'm originally from the state of New York. I say that so that you can know that I'm not actually from the city of New York. I moved down to Florida a few years ago, and I currently live in the Tampa Bay area. And I think I said I'm a pastor at a local church in the area. So that's what I do. Justin and I became friends, and we've known each other for I don't know what we met in
Five,
2005. Yeah,
fall 2005. I
so
remember
about
it
15
well.
years. 15 years this year, actually,
Yep.
in August. Though we didn't start
August.
talking to each other probably until September, October.
Yeah,
Really?
probably. I was probably late to the party as usual for me, but you were probably going to intervarsity meetings before I showed up.
Yeah, we were a part of a organization called InterVarsity Christian Fellowship. It was an on-campus like Christian ministry where you do lots of fellowship service events. You learn about how to do apologetics and so on and so forth. We're not really going to talk about that, but I remember meeting Justin by I think I walked up to you, right? And you were just kind of hanging out by yourself.
Pretty much. I'm an introvert by nature. David is a extrovert by nature.
Painfully
So
extroverted.
I just showed up to the meeting and I didn't really talk to anybody except for my roommates for the most part. And that was pretty much it. So I probably looked like some scared newcomer, even though I had been there before.
Yeah, and I just am the person who will be like, "Hello, hello, random citizen. Here to have a conversation." And that's kind of how that went off. I remember Justin eventually would call me on my cell phone when we had flip phones because I, being the naive 18-year-old I was, put my number on Facebook and he figured, oh, if he's going to put his number out there, I'm going to call him. And after that, we just have hit it off ever since. He was my best man in my wedding, and I was the best man in his. And we hasn't been too much we haven't shared in a long time, is it?
Pretty much, yeah. I think we're pretty much. If there's anything big going in each other's lives, we bump each other up to the top of the call list.
Yeah, and it's as if like our conversations were we just talked an hour ago, even if it's been like a week or two since we last talked. So that's just a little bit about our friendship. I didn't give you guys any more details about me. I am, like I said, I'm a pastor. I'm married. I have a family. I'm not going to talk to you about my children at this point, but I have a couple of kids. Some of them have fur, and I just I think we're going to really enjoy this. So, Justin, I think do you want to tell your story first, or should I break into mine? Mine's significantly shorter about how I started to love Disney than I think yours is. Yours is actually almost a novella.
Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna have to condense mine down to fit into the time block here. But yeah, you go ahead and share yours.
All right, so my first experience at Disney was when I was, I don't even know if I was 10 years old. It was way back in the 90s when everything was bright and colorful. And I was in Florida with family. We went to Disney for a day, but I was coming down with a chicken pox. So I don't remember anything because I think I was hallucinating. So we got home. We went home. That was my first Disney experience so long ago that I don't really, like I said, I know I was sick, so I don't really remember anything. Fast forward from the 90s until 2000. I think, when did we meet each other at Disney Springs? What year was that for Ben?
That
Was it
that would have been 2009.
So 2009 was the second time I'd ever been to Disney, and I only went to Disney Springs. And I just met Justin and a couple of our guy friends from college for, I think, a couple hours.
Yeah, we
And then
did
fast
some.
forward again till 2012, where I met my wife, and she and I were going to get married, and she was planning our honeymoon. So I was so in love with my wife, I wasn't really thinking about much of anything, and she
Oh,
wanted to, yeah, when you find that right lady, guys, sometimes it's hard to put 2 cents together in your brain, um,
or in your pocket.
or in your pocket, especially if you're paying for a wedding. Um, so she was setting up our honeymoon. We were gonna come to Florida since her family owned property down here and a vacation home. So we said, okay, let's use the vacation home for our honeymoon and have a good time. And while we were planning this, like 2 months before we had our wedding, she found a deal on the Disney website for 2 tickets to a park for 1 day, an overnight stay at a deluxe concierge level. Now, that might not mean a whole lot to you, but to somebody who knows what that is, the deal she found was all of that: one night stay, deluxe concierge, 2 tickets for $500. Which I'm sure, Justin, you could say that's actually not a bad price.
That is really good.
Because nowadays Disney, just to get the Magic Kingdom with the variable pricing, it's like $110 a person. And to stay at the deluxe level, I think today it is almost $500 to stay at the deluxe level at certain
Yeah,
deluxe
and that's not
resorts.
saying anything about concierge.
Yeah. So I think if you stayed at the resort we stayed at today, which is Animal Kingdom Lodge, it would be about $500 for a night at concierge level. Not and
Absolutely.
so Elena found this deal, and I had been going to Florida ever since I was little because my grandparents lived down here. As most New Yorkers transition to Florida, um, I can't do it. They're real New York City, um, Florida, and I'd been coming down here to visit them since I was 13. I'd had in my mind the idea like, hey, look, when you go to Florida, you need to go to the real Florida, and Disney's not the real Florida. And I never had an interest. I kind of thought Disney was for kids. And Elena said, "Oh, let's do it." I was like, I don't know. But here's a good tip of advice for anyone who's thinking about married. It's okay to make your spouse happy. Justin, you know what I mean?
Yes.
And she wanted to do it. And I just said, you know what? Sure, let's do it. And so she booked it. She was ecstatic. Absolutely. She had been to Disney like a bunch of times as a kid. Not a bunch of times, but many more times than I have. She had an idea, and I had no idea. So, but wanted to be the good soon to be husband, so I said yes. We came down. We done got hitched. We came for a honeymoon, did a whole lot of stuff. In the last few days, we went to Disney. And as we were leaving, I could still remember driving an I-4. My wife was just like, if she could jump out of the seat, she would have in the car. And actually, as opposed to being a stick in the mud, I was like, you know what, let's do this. And I was excited too. We drove up to the Animal Kingdom Lodge, and it was out of this world. I mean, I had never seen a hotel that looked like that. There's animals, there was like the plants and the way they manicured the whole resort. It just looks like you're there. And you go outside and you see animals walking the safari areas that they have set up. The internal area is just humongous and tall, and I'm not doing it any justice in Animal Kingdom Lodge this time. We'll talk about the resorts, I think, at another time, Justin, but
Oh
and
yes.
more in depth. But it blew me away. Like I never knew that Disney could be like this. It was not the thing I remember seeing on TV when I was a kid, and also not just for kids. And that night, after we got all unpacked and set up, we went up to the concierge level, of course, and just the lady programmed our whole day in the parks the next day. There was free food and drinks because we were in concierge. It just no stops were all the stops were pulled out. We went to Jico, and one of the restaurants in that place was utterly fantastic food,
Been there, done that. Great
and that's
stuff.
one we'll also talk about at some other time, I think. The restaurants. and it blew us away. It blew me away. The next day, we got up bright and early, hopped on the bus, the Disney transportation, which again, as somebody who had no idea, I didn't even know that how to get to the parks. I was surprised that Disney, for free, provided transportation from their resorts to the parks. And we went to the Magic Kingdom, and we stayed from open until close, which in the August sun was a long, hot, sweaty day. um,
Small, slightly a poor life decision, but it worked out.
Yeah, we were there in 2012 before New Fantasyland opened up, and so there's a little bit of construction, but it was cool. It was awesome. We had a good time. We saw the fireworks, stayed for the parade. We briefly ducked out to eat at the Artist Point, not the one they do now, but the one you used to have before it switched over to Storybook.
Yeah.
Um, it was just, I think we were in the parks for over 12 hours, which when you stay on property, it's kind of a noob move. But then we drove home after that. That was kind of a mistake, but I absolutely fell in love with it. Absolutely fell in love with it. And was it in 2014? My wife and I moved to the Tampa Bay area. We got a church down here. It's been fantastic. Within the month of us moving down here, I'm pretty sure it was in the first week and a half. My wife and I bought annual passes for Florida residents, and we've pretty much kept them ever since. We haven't been going lately because we've had some changes in our family. Like I said, I'm a father, but we were going monthly, sometimes twice a month, and at very minimum, we're going quarterly, and we just absolutely loved it. Justin and I have had opportunity to go there together several times. We'll explain more about that later, but I just have fallen in love with it. An idea that I never thought I could enjoy it because I thought it was for kids. And so that's really how my story progressed. Justin, do you want to talk about yours?
Sure. All right. Well, first thing is my love for Disney is multifaceted. There's your dictionary word of the day right there. Multifaceted. But so you know it's going to be a long story when it starts with, well, my parents got into Disney when they were kids because guess what? Disneyland was just about to open when they were born. So they grew up on the old TV show and the movies, and naturally, when they had little old me, they decided, well, we're going to raise our son on some Disney stuff. So I got into the Disney movies as a kid, and but they decided that even though they had been to Disney World twice before I was born, and also before Epcot even opened, so when they went to Disney World, it was just the Magic Kingdom. They decided that they were going to wait until I was 6 years old to take me to Disney World for the very first time. Smart move on their part
Oh
because
yeah,
if they had taken me before that, I wouldn't have remembered a thing.
that would have been a
But
vacation for them, not for you.
exactly. So they took me when I was 6 years old for the very first time. I remember enjoying it. I remember going there right after being a ring boy in somebody's wedding, and it was I was just ecstatic to get out of that tiny little tuxedo. But but anyway, when I got down and they said, "Hey, we're going to Disney World," it I remember it registered with me in a pretty big way. So I was really excited to go down there and to see everything, and I got to do so many of the rides and attractions, even though I didn't make the hike requirement for some of their more thrilling things. But back then, they didn't have as many of the thrilling attractions as they do now. So I still got to ride most of the rides while there.
Did you
And
do It's a Small World?
yeah, I did It's a Small World and Pirates of the Caribbean. The Tiki Room stands out to me. The Tiki Room, Country Bear Jamboree, and 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea are the things that stand out to me as most memorable, along with the Indiana Jones stunt show that
Oh
was
yeah.
around back then. Hollywood Studios was a pretty recent park. I think it was probably 3 years old when I went.
Was it still
And
MGM at the time?
yes, it was still MGM at the time. And Epcot, most of what I remember about Epcot is I remember Horizons, which is long gone now, And I remember the World Showcase, and I remember the journey into imagination back when they had Dreamfinder and everything in it. It was a much longer ride, much more, in my personal opinion, interesting, even though it's still pretty good today. But anyway, I digress. So that was my first trip. Later on, I flew down for that trip, and that was exciting. Then when I was 10 years old, I went again. We can only do two parks that trip, so we went to Magic Kingdom and Epcot. They let me choose. We went down by Auto Train, which is a new experience in and of itself, and went with my aunt and uncle, and enjoyed that trip. And then in 2007 was the next time I went. So I was in college at that point, and I knew Dave at that point, but a different aunt and uncle, along with my little cousin, who was 3 years old at the time. We went down to, they took me down there over the winter break one year and got to see all four theme parks for the first time. It was pretty much at that time of the year, there wasn't that many people in the park. The recession was about to hit, which meant there were even fewer people in the parks. So we got to ride a lot of rides multiple times. Animal Kingdom was virtually a ghost town. I remember getting on Kali River Rapids and staying on it for 3 trips around with my uncle, and that was exciting. And
I
and
still have
also,
not done that ride.
oh wow, yeah, it's a lot of fun. But I got to say, I don't know how long I'd wait. But then again, I'm kind of spoiled, so I'm not sure I'd wait too long for really any attraction. But but anyway, then for some reason, um, in 2008, late in 2008, my parents decided they were going to buy into Disney Vacation Club. I had a couple of aunts and uncles that had already bought into it and had been members for quite some time, but one of them had talked my parents into buying into Disney Vacation Club. I graduated college in 2009 after cramming 4 years of college into 6. But
You said it, not me.
yeah, but it was before that last semester of college in 2009. It was that winter break that my parents said, "Guess what? We bought into Disney Vacation Club." And at that point, for some reason, my attitude toward Disney had changed. I guess college, extra time in college had done this or something. And I was thinking, why would you do that? But they said, we'd like to invite you to sign on to our contract with us, so you'd have as much rights to the points, DVC points, as we do, and we'd even like to invite you to add on to the contract another 50 points that we can use and spend time down there together. And I was like, I don't know. But they said, well, just come down with us. Just come down with us for this trip. We're going to stay at Saratoga Springs and on our new points, and you can decide if you want to add on in the middle of that trip. And I don't know what it was. We got there and checked in at Saratoga Springs into a 2 bedroom villa. So,
Wow.
you know, that $500 thing, let's talk about today, like $1,500, probably in the low season per
Yeah.
night. But it's on points, so it's a whole lot less expensive on points, of course. Um, but stayed in there. I had the second bedroom all to myself and walked into that. I remember walking into that villa and thinking, oh my goodness, this is like Diet Grand Floridian in this place. I mean, it's spectacular. So that in and of itself was exciting. And we went to Magic Kingdom as the first park we're going to go to while we're there. It's already evening, by the way. So in January, so night had fallen.
A little chilly.
Yeah. At some point along the line, Dad realized he had forgotten the will call numbers to pick up our tickets. So we were already on our way by the Disney transportation by bus to get there. So Mom and I stayed there at the gate, and I remember just looking at Main Street USA at the train station there, waiting for Dad to get back with the will call numbers. And to save some time, he was actually going to give us a call when he got the will call number so we could go up and pick up the tickets and go in, and he would catch up to us. But I remember sitting there, and the music is playing out front of the station, and then it starts playing "When You Wish Upon a Star," that
Huh.
quintessential Disney tune. And at that point, I was hooked. It was like all the love for Disney came back in like a tidal wave, and I couldn't wait to get in. And finally, when I got in, and there's the castle all lit up at night, and going through Magic Kingdom, and seeing everything again, almost as if for the first time. Yep, I was hooked. You did that. I add on those extra 50 points to that contract. You bet your sweet bippy I did. Yeah, I didn't. I didn't waste any time on that. So been a Disney Vacation Club member ever since. Added on even more points since then, and we go probably about once or twice a year on average. And even now that I'm married, even Christy wasn't so sure about me because I spent so much money at Disney at
Christy's
first.
his
But
wife.
yeah, so she wasn't so sure about that at first, but then took her down there with my parents. And uh, when we once we were engaged, we went down there and she got to see it, and then she was hooked. So we are definitely a Disney family, and I think that's going to stay. But like I said, my interest in Disney doesn't just stop at the parks, it's multifaceted. I love the movies, I love the old TV shows. I've collected quite a few of them. I've gotten into run Disney events now. And on top of everything else, and I think probably the biggest thing for me is what I call Waltology, which is the study of Walt Disney himself, the man behind everything that's been going on ever since the 50s, and before that even. I like to look at his biographies and what he was like, and the things that inspired him and drove him to create Mickey Mouse, and then the parks and everything. It's pretty fascinating to me.
It is. It's something where it's amazing on what it does. And so what we're going to be doing in the future is, Justin, I think one of the things that I was listening to you, I know what Disney Vacation Club is, but in the future, maybe we should explain what that is to people who probably don't have any idea.
Oh yes, we should do that.
We're going to try to avoid using like special I go to the park a lot terms as much as possible. So if you are a listener and you're catching this for the first time and you're like, I have no idea what that means, just let us know. Um, we don't want to speak in any inside terms because we want this to be something useful to you. And also, really, this is about just not just talking about it and just experiencing the fun again through conversation. You know what I mean?
Yep. Should we tell them about where they can tell us when they need more information about something?
Oh yeah, why don't you handle that?
All right. So we have a Gmail account. It is Mickey's Earbuds at gmail.com. So feel free to email us at Mickey's Earbuds at gmail.com with any questions you may have regarding anything we have said, or something you want to explain further. You're completely in the dark about it. That's the perfect place to do it.
Yeah, and if you want us to explore something, like Justin and I have quite a list that we I have quite a list, but I think you have a list that you've been developing as well, things that we're going to talk about. But if there's something you want us to focus in on in particular, we'll try to do our best. Like I'll try to give the local perspective since I live nearby, and Justin being kind of coming, he comes from out of state, what that perspective is like so that we could be a real use to you when we go over this stuff because it is different. I mean, do you think so?
Yes, it is. It is very different being from being a local to being out of state, and it's different even from I'm in Maryland. I can drive, I can take the train, I can fly. I've got all three of those options at my disposal pretty readily. Some people that I know live further out of state than that, and so for them to go to Disney, they pretty much have to fly.
Yeah.
So it's even different from that standpoint as well. So all of those things, different perspectives we can talk about there.
Yeah. Fortunately, you and I live in the same time zone too, because we have a couple of friends who are coming from some of them across the country.
Yep.
And so there is a lot of different ways to do this. And what we're going to do, I think a few in-depth ones, look at the parks, look at if you'd like, we could do an episode on how to prepare to go to Disney. Like, what are the steps that Justin takes to get ready since he's coming from so far away? What are the steps that I take as somebody who's coming from inside of 2 hours?
What are some
And
things? What are
yeah,
some things you'd like to do as a first timer?
oh
Because
yeah,
not everybody goes multiple times like we do. So we can talk to you about things that you would do if you're just going. This is a one and done trip. So we can talk about what you would do to prepare for a one and done trip rather than oh yeah, we're definitely coming back trip. So
now I'll tell you though, I know that a lot of people are like, this is the only time we can afford it. This is our once in a lifetime Disney trip. But I can bet you that 90% of you are gonna say, even if it never happens, that you're gonna want to come back and do it again. And we're not getting paid to say that, you know.
no, Disney is not a sponsor.
Hashtag not a sponsor. Um, we're just fans, but you, you can't help but go back. You had literally just started your job as a mathematician when you bought those points, right? For the
uh,
vacation club.
Pretty much. I mean, technically, when I bought those points, I hadn't even. I was just an intern, really, so I haven't even been full time yet. Yeah.
Yeah, and points are I guess they're the currency you exchange for staying so many dates at the vacation club, right?
Yeah, it is kind of like it's a fancy but very flexible timeshare in that aspect that you have certain number of points, you get them a certain number of points every year to use to stay at Disney resorts. And it's not just Disney World, it's Disneyland. They got one in Hawaii, one at Vero Beach, Florida, one at Hilton Head Island. You can use points at all of those places plus other things. So, but yeah, it's basically a timeshare and what kind of room you're getting, which resort you're staying at, and what time of year it is, whether you're staying on a weekday or weekend, all affect how many points it's going to take to stay there.
Well, let's not spoil that episode totally, but this so
Yeah.
you understand what we're talking about. Um, hey, we got to leave you guys something that's makes you want to come back at some point. And I can promise you, we're not going to talk about the vacation club even next episode, so you have to really hang in there.
Yeah.
But
Stay tuned. Keep
yes, stay
listening.
tuned. I think we're going to wrap it up. What do you think?
Yeah, that sounds good. Sounds like we're good for our first episode here. So,
And
thank you for joining us. Thank you for listening and looking forward to talking to you more about this stuff in the future.
yeah, it'll be a lot of fun. Take care.